I'm Francine Toumé, so from the Republic of Congo, Congo-Brazzaville, and where I'm leading the Congolese Foundation for Medical Research, and I'm senior lecturer also at the University Marien Ngouabi in Brazzaville, and associate professor at the University of Tübingen in Germany. So, for this presentation, the title was Rise and Spread of Multi-Drug-Resistant Malaria, but I changed a little bit for sustaining the efficacy of the existing treatment in the shadow of increasing drug resistance. So the outline of my presentation will be, I will present briefly the malaria burden in sub-Saharan Africa, then how to sustain current treatment for uncomplicated malaria, and what are the challenges with these anti-malarials, and a short conclusion. All of you know what causes malaria. It's transmitted by the female mosquito. The parasite, malaria parasite, there are 5 different species able to infect human: falciparum, vivax, malariae, ovale, and nullesii. But falciparum is the most dangerous because responsible of death. And very quickly, the life cycle of Plasmodium falciparum. The sporozoites are injected and go very quickly in the liver, and when parasites are in the liver stage, they do not, there are no symptom, and only during the, I don't know how to move that, okay, it's here, okay, during asexual stages in the red blood cells, the patients have symptoms, and most of the drugs, not all of them, but most of the drugs are targeting these stages, asexual blood stages. So malaria situation today, I will use the the WHO malaria report 2017. So still the same regions are malaria endemic, South America, Southeast Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. And in the malaria report for 2017, malaria cases represented 216 million, and 90% were from the African region. And 15 countries carried 80% of the global malaria burden. But however, there is a decline of malaria, and 20% since 2010, but 20% for African region compared to 48% for the Southeast Asia. With regards to malaria deaths in African region, so the total for the global malaria situation, 445,000 deaths were deplored, and 91% in African region. And again, 15 countries accounted for 80% of global deaths. But also good news, there was a decrease in mortality by 37%. The malaria situation, we need funds, financial support for fighting this disease. And from 2010 to 2016, there is an increase, substantial increase in support to 2.7 billion, but it's not enough. There is a need to have almost 3 times more support. And in blue, you have the domestic investment, so the malaria endemic countries' investment in the fight against malaria, and you see that it doesn't change over the years since 2010. And in yellow for the USA support, and in green it's France and UK, and in red France, Germany, and Japan, and other funders in gray. So since 2013, you may see here there is a sort of stagnation of support for malaria. And where goes this funding? Drugs, the major investment are for drugs, then basic research and vaccines. Vector control is not, in fact, not well supported. So, about drugs, anti-malarial drugs. We all know that since the 19th, monotherapies were used. Chloroquine, pyrimethamine, proguanil, and others. But as soon as we have an anti-malarial drug, we have resistance coming very soon, more or less sooner. So here we see that from 2000, mefloquine, alofentrin, sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine, the resistance to these major drugs was, chloroquine of course, was so high that WHO recommended to change the policy for the treatment of uncomplicated malaria for combination drugs using artemisinin combination. And from 2004, many African countries changed their policy for artemether lumefantrine or amodiaquine artesunate. For some countries was the first or second drug for the treatment. So, and I will use in this presentation many data from the WARN. WARN is the Worldwide Antimalarial Resistant Network. And so the efficacies of these ACTs were about 85 to more than 90%. But using these artemisinin combination drugs, the resistance emerged, and in Southeast Asia, and the first verified cases were in 2009. But when we look at the history, we know that when resistance starts in Southeast Asia, it comes then through East Africa and then to Sub-Saharan Africa. So it was really a warning signal that we have to be very, very careful because artemisinin combination therapies are working. But this resistance to artemisinin was not really what we had for chloroquine. The definition is a delayed clearance of malaria parasites. And for taking lessons from the past, so the WHO and partners organized the containment of artemisinin resistance in the southeast, in the greater Mekong subregion. So how to move forward with this surveillance of anti-malarial drug in Sub-Saharan Africa or elsewhere, but we focus on Sub-Saharan Africa. First, to monitor regularly efficacy of existing drugs, artemisinin derivatives. We should not forget that artemisinin, artesunate, artemether are used as monotherapy, are used for the treatment of severe malaria. So, and also we need to monitor the efficacy of partner drugs, and come back to that later. And secondly, very important, to adopt adequate behavior to protect effective, efficient anti-malarials. So the partner drugs used with artemisinin plus the partner drug amodiaquine, lumefantrine, mefloquine, sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine, or pyronaridine. Today in Sub-Saharan Africa, in many places, resistance has been detected for all of these drugs. But this does not affect the efficacy of the combination with artemisinin. So there is a need to have a good surveillance tools for identifying any emergence of really resistant to these combinations. So what are the tools available? The gold standard are the therapeutic studies, and also in addition with molecular markers. In vivo parasite clearance, but it costs money and it's not easy to do. Second, in vitro assays to to determine the inhibitory concentration 50, and the resistant molecular markers, PFCRT, Plasmodium falciparum, chloroquine resistant transporter marker, PFMDR1, multi-drug resistant marker 1, K13 propeller, DHFR, DHPS for sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine, etc. So the one network pooled data from for more than 66 studies for using studies where artemether, lumefantrine, AL were used, and compared to other studies using artesunate, amodiaquine, and so more than 20,000 patients were, data from more than 20 patients were investigated, and they found it was clear that PFCRT and PFMDR1 mutations of genes were important in terms of monitoring the resistance to lumefantrine and amodiaquine. And the two drugs are targeting the same point mutation in the gene PFCRT, the point 76, and PFMDR1, the point 86. And also, the copy number for PFMDR1 is also how to say, a criteria for, oh, sorry, yes, I go quickly, a criteria for resistance. So that's so very quickly, so for anti-malarial drug challenges, the poor community engagement or anti-malarial drug use is a problem, and also the poor quality of drug, substandard, incorrect dosage. So quickly, why we have to adopt appropriate behavior? Because when the WHO recommended to track, test, and treat, meaning you need to do a test before treatment. But unfortunately, in sub-Saharan Africa, many people are using drugs, anti-malarials, without being tested positive. And regarding to the drug, the quality of drug, also there is data lacking for many countries, and we know that it may represent counterfeit or substandard drugs are representing more than 50% in the informal markets in sub-Saharan Africa. And in Lubumbashi, as an example, out of 60 drugs tested, more than 22 were counterfeit. So poor quality, including subtherapeutic drugs, may increase the risk of artemisinin resistance. And we need, of course, for monitoring surveillance, we need to strengthen capacity, human resources, infrastructure. And as a conclusion, there is a need to generate reliable data from malaria, data sharing to have this platform like what one has made available for malaria researchers to share information, and also to share information with the population. So thank you very much.